Hey there, everyone. I am Laurel Beard, co-host of the Card Making Summit and one of the proud sponsors of this event. When I'm not covered in ink or arguing with my die cuts, I am helping crafters of all levels create using what they have and without any stress. It is all about fun and stress-free card making with me. I've got over 700 videos by now over on my YouTube channel, a bunch of online courses over on my website, and also I have something super secret coming soon. If you want to be notified, just sign up for the waitlist by going to laurelbeard.org/waitlist and visit my website at laurelbeard.org for everything else.
Hi everyone, I'm so excited to be here today. I am Nicki Baxley of Nicki Hearts Cards. So you can find me as Nicki Hearts Cards on all social media. And today I'm here at the Stress Free Card Making Summit to go over how to make an infinity shaker. If you don't know what an infinity shaker is, let me show you. Basically, it means the whole front panel of the card is a shaker. So got elements that go up and down. It's hard for me to show you on camera, but these go all the way through here. And we're going to create some interesting stenciling. We're going to show you how to coordinate a card and just how to come up with these supplies. Even if you don't have everything I have, there's a lot of things in your house that you could use to create one of these fun interactive cards. I have 2 teenage boys, and believe it or not, they love this kind of card. They love things that move and interact like this. So it's an easy way to put something together for any of the kids in your life or any of us I love opening something sparkly and that you can shake and move around. It just gives up that extra little excitement to the recipient. So we're going to get right into making this card. Make sure you have downloaded my freebie and you follow me on all social media. Let's go. All right, so today I cut 2 pieces of paper as we get started kind of gathering supplies, but what I wanted to show you is that it depends on what plastic you are using as to what size your card needs to be cut. So I started out with a regular A2 and then one that's a little bit smaller. I'm going to show you what I'm using to cover the whole card and hold those shaker pieces in. It is a folder, it's like a little plastic folder from Avery Elle that a lot of times I store stamps and dies in. And it's transparent. Now you could use packaging, and I'm going to show you this too, packaging from your stamps. Anything like that will work. I also have a piece of acetate that works. Acetate's a little bit harder because you're going to have to make some score lines in it. And those score lines can be a little bit more difficult with acetate to get everything to stick down the way that you want it. So if you could find a plastic packaging, you're going to do a little bit better. So we're going to look at these 2, and I'm going to start trying to fit a piece of paper in there. I'll tell you the tips and tricks on this and what works the best. So I would start with your plastic piece and then start trying to fit a piece of paper inside it. So the paper that I'm using right now is called Bristol Smooth. You just need a smooth paper because we're going to create a wonderful design. You see how I'm struggling to get it in this packaging? I want it to fit in without a struggle, but I don't want there to be any gaps in the side of the packaging because when you put all your shaker pieces in, they're going to end up going behind the card if you don't have a good fit. So this one has a little bit too much room off to the side. Do you see that right there? It's got just a little bit too much of a gap, so that doesn't quite work for that one. So I'm going to end up needing to trim some paper, and when I say trim it, if you're barely getting it in here, I'm talking like 1/8 of an inch, just very teeny. You could do it with scissors. I'm going to do it with a paper trimmer and show you my favorite of the paper trimmers. So this reminds me of Goldilocks and the 3 Bears. We have one paper that's too big, one paper that's too small. So let's make one that's just right. All right, so I'm going to use my favorite trimmer. This is called a Rototrim Monorail 13, and it's a rotary trimmer, but it has this little metal lever right here that will hold my paper so that I can make those teeny tiny cuts. If you don't have a trimmer, no worries. Just use some scissors and cut a teeny little amount off. Try to keep your cut straight so it fits in that envelope really easily. So I'm going to take off a teeny amount of this paper, and then we'll check it in the envelope and see what happens. Okay, let's see if it fits. So I'm putting mine, like I said, in a plastic envelope, and I know this envelope looks way too big, but now I can slide it down. And you see how I'm still putting some force on it because I don't want there to be any gaps, but I also don't want the paper to be bending inside here. So that little 1/8 of an inch allowed me to slide it down where it's not going to move, and we'll be able to fold this over and add our shaker pieces. But first, we need to create our design. Okay, I'm going to be using a layered stencil called Daisy Craze, and this is a layered stencil. Don't let layered stencils intimidate you. You could do this with one layer. You could do this with stamping. You could just rub some inks along a piece of paper to create your background. It doesn't matter. I'm going to use 4 inks from Altenew that come in a pack so that they're just ombre colored because I wanted to keep this pretty easy. You can do the same thing with one color of ink, and I'll talk you through that as we do this stencil. Okay, so this has 4 stencils in it, and if you look at stencils close, it's very hard to capture this on camera, but most layered stencils are labeled in one of the corners so that you can turn everything the correct way and you know which side's the right side of the stencil. These are Altenew stencils, and so we are going to do each one of these stencils in a different color. Now, if you're using one color of ink, you can do that by putting different amounts of pressure on your blending. It's easiest to do it with different size ink blending brushes. So don't worry if you only have one. We'll start with our lightest layer. Now you're going to need something to hold your piece of paper and your stencil down. I have this sticky mat from Altenew. It's part of the stamp wheel. You can use tape, whatever you want, but I'm going to be using a sticky mat as, to me, this is one of the greatest inventions of the past couple years. It really just helps save tape. And I'll still use a little tape to help line some things up, but for the most part, I can just lay my stencils down. They hang off the paper so they stick to the mat below, and it makes it pretty easy. If you struggle with stencil placement, then just take some tape like I'm doing right now and run it along the edge of the first one. So I'm making a little grid where I can just put that next stencil right there, and I know it should be lined up right. Sometimes you still have to move it a little bit, but if you're brand new to stenciling, this is a great way to get the layers lined up very easily. I'm starting with sea glass, and I'm going to use a small blending brush because this is the lightest color that I'm using, and I want to make sure that it shows up well. So when you're looking at blending brushes and ink, the bigger the blending brush, the more it's going to spread and lighten the ink. It covers bigger spaces, which is nice, but if you're wanting really dark colors or you want a more intense color on your stencil, then you want to start going to smaller and smaller brushes. So if you have that option, that gives you more ways to use your singular inks than to have these sets of 4 like I have now. I'm going to speed up what we're doing over this, but I just want to say that you need to pick where you're going. When you're ink blending, you can ink blend steadily across a flower and keep the ink the same. You can create some spotlight effects by doing a harder blend or more ink towards the center or the outside edges. I am making sure that my ink comes from the inside of these little daisies, and that's because I want there to be kind of definition in the flowers, and it's an easy way to make your blending look more 3D. You've got a focal point and it spreads out to the other part. Let me show you how this looks. When I remove this, notice the difference how I ink blended. I know it's going to be a very light color, but notice that it's darker towards the center of the flowers and lighter towards the edges of the petals. This gives you that look that just really changes your ink blending and really allows you a lot of difference just by playing with the blending. For our next layer of flowers, we're using the second darkest color, and it's called Ocean Waves. So when you're doing a layered stencil, it is good to pick a direction. Are you going to start with the darkest, or are you going to start with the lightest? And you can do either way, but you're going to have a better result if you will go ahead and decide the order and stick with that order when you're going through the stencils. And I'm following these and doing the same thing, going harder towards the middle and then lighter towards the ends. But we're also using a darker color. So when I pull this stencil off, you're really going to see the difference in adding these other colors. Like I said, you could do this with a flat stencil. It doesn't have to be layered. I just wanted to kind of take you through some steps of a layering stencil so that maybe you could do those a little bit easier. And also, I really like how this brings more dimension to the card. We're basically doing a flat card, and this really helps everything just looks so much nicer. I really love it. So let's look at how beautiful this looks. Can you see that different dimension? I love it. Now we got 2 more layers. I'm going to speed up the blending on those, but just show you a couple quick tips, and then we will get into making this card. This third layer is just some detail kind of behind the flowers, so I'm going to do this one really fast and not worry so much about where the spotlight is. I'm using Dusk, which is the 3rd level of darkness on our little set of inks. So this is a pretty quick and easy one. I'll show you what it looks like when I pull it off. And here's how that 3rd layer looks. So we're really looking awesome now. The last layer, I'm going to use 2 tones of color. So I'm going to show you this from a couple different angles to try to get you to be able to see how I'm ink blending. It's a little difficult to see from above when you're adding tiny details, but I'm going to start with Ocean Waves, which is what we just used on the other one. And I'm going to color in all of the areas here just generally with Ocean Waves. Then we're going to come back and we're going to add some intense detail with the darkest color. So you could just take the darkest color and do this. I just wanted to show you a new way to add some extra detail. So I'm taking a very small brush and I'm using Desert Nights, which is the really dark navy, and I'm coming along the edges so that I create kind of a spotlight effect around each of these. I'm going to show you from above too, so you can see how this is looking. So just bringing that brush in like 1/8 of an inch around each of these to create a little shadow. And so you'll see that with this little teeny brush that I'm using, it really makes a difference. I'll show you when we take it off and you'll be able to see the nice shadow effect. And here's what that layer looks like. Notice like the spotlight and the difference in that shading. It looks so nice, and it's just going around those just a little bit more. I felt like my flowers were a little too light, so I did go back in with the flower stencils and just add a little bit more darkness since we went up and it kind of takes the petals away. So I just went and added a couple more coats of color to each of those. Okay, so here's how that looks in the end. You see I darkened up the petals a little bit so you could see them better. Now we need to decide what we're going to use as our shaker pieces. The way that I do this is I wait until I've colored my card, and then I lay out different types of sequins on the card to see what kind of matches the best. So you'll see me grab a couple packs of sequins. I wanted to keep it to sequins. You want to keep it to something relatively flat because remember how tight our thing fits in there. You want to keep it as a relatively flat item so that it can move around and still have a little bit of movement in there. The little glass balls can work too, but doing flat sequins has been the most successful for me. I'm going to be using the Simon Says Stamp Northern Light sequins, and then let's go ahead and get it set up, okay? Because this is probably just as long of the process as getting your shaker cart built. So you're going to put your piece of paper in the plastic envelope or whatever piece of plastic you have, and then go ahead and start creasing it so that it fits perfectly around the card. So I'm going to fold this piece and make a really nice line. Using something heavy along this line is nice. You can use a ruler like I'm doing. You could use a bone folder. You could use an acrylic block. You just want to make that a really nice crease, and it's harder with plastic, so you want to really push on it and create the perfect crease right here. See how that folds nicely? So you're going to need some kind of adhesive to keep this little pocket folded. I'm going to be a little excessive about it and use a double-sided adhesive inside and outside. You do not have to do that. You could just tape this down really well with masking tape. That's perfectly fine. But I'm going to cut a little bit of it off so that when it bends, I'm not seeing the plastic on the other side of the card. So I tend to cut mine into a triangle. Let me show you. Now, since I'm going to be putting a little bit of double-sided adhesive tape inside of this flap, I do need to leave enough area to get this right here. So I'm not going to start cutting in my triangle until at least that width. So I'd usually just kind of eyeball it and start cutting. So I know I need to go up here to trace my triangle. And this is partly just so that your card is not so bulky and cutting off this little extra, but also so that when you fold it back, you're not seeing pieces or uneven edges behind it, more like an envelope. And it doesn't have to come to a point like that. You just need an area that you can tape down that will fold over the back. So I cut mine kind of more like a flat envelope. Now I'm going to use double-sided adhesive. Like I said, if you have masking tape, something like that, you could use it. That's perfectly fine. I like mine to sit very flat, and you've got to leave a little space for where it's folding, or else you're going to see this adhesive on the other side of the card. So I'm putting it on the back, and I left that little gap so that when I fold this over, you can't see it from the other side. Now, because this is an envelope, if I don't seal the inside, well, then things could fall out. I mean, if you seal the outside and tape it down, you're going to be fine. I just usually do this extra layer to keep everything nice inside my card, especially if somebody gets kind of aggressive with shaking it. So you're opening up the envelope part and you're putting another piece of tape down inside, and that's just going to seal the envelope shut. And then your piece of tape you've already put on is holding it back down to the back of the card. So we have a layer of tape inside the opening. We have a layer of tape on the outside of the opening. Now we need our little pieces on the inside. So let's fill up this shaker card and get it all assembled so we've got those awesome, fun pieces. So here is it's got that opening still. I haven't sealed anything. And here are the shaker pieces that I'm going to use. These are Simon Says stamped Northern Lights, and we're going to pour them inside. I have found the easiest way to do this is not with this plastic package. So I'm going to use a little triangle tray, and that just helps me pour a little bit better. You don't want to get so many that you make this too bulky. So start slow with how many you're putting in, and make sure that they go back and forth inside the package versus making the package bulge out. So do a thin layer and check it first. You may be surprised at how few you can use and still get plenty of movement in here. So I'm going to add a few more, and then I'm going to go ahead and seal this little pouch, and then we're going to add our sentiment and show off how cute this card is. So color coordinated. So once you've got what you need in there and everything seems to be moving like it should, not too static, you see me kind of moving things off of the piece of plastic to try to keep it from being static. And then I'm going to take my backing off this inside adhesive, go ahead and seal it down really well. So sealing this down. Then I'm going to fold it over the back of the card and remove the adhesive backing from the other one. So I've got my adhesive sticking off the card a little bit. Let me trim that. Now pull the adhesive backing off of the card, or off of the adhesive, and fold it over and press firmly. Make sure that it's nice and stuck down, and then we'll flip our card over and make sure all the pieces are staying inside. Nothing's falling out. It's moving like it should. This is awesome. Okay, let's finish this card with a cute sentiment that's perfectly coordinated. I just love that movement. Now, since you're in a pocket, you're not going to have as drastic of movement as if you have built up a frame around this and made it much taller, but you're still going to see that movement, and I really like how easy it is. You don't have to build up layers. So now we're just going to pick the perfect sentiment for this card. I picked one that's really large from the All to New Timeless Sentiments 2, and it says, "Have a good day," and it takes up most of the card, which is what I really like in a shaker card. It's fun to use those big sentiments. So we're going to need to die cut the shadow and the words. I'm die cutting them both from white paper, and then we're going to custom color the shadow so that it matches with the rest of our card. So the machine that I'm using is the Anna Griffin Mini, and it just pulls this through, die cuts it, and then let's start ink blending on that shadow. I did cut out the "Have a Good Day" letters multiple times because that makes these a little bit taller on my card, and it's just an easy way, especially if you got scrap paper. Just instead of using something like foam tape, you can kind of pop your letters up a little bit if you put several layers together. So I have 3 layers of everything, and you'll see that a couple of these things are separated and not together. So it's kind of funny because that says ha ha ha. But we're going to put all the Y's, all the HA's together, and then the rest of the have a good day together. And I'm just going to use a little bit of glue and glue these on top of each other. I'm using the Barely Arts glue, and just little dots of glue are really all that you need. You probably do need something to hold on to your letters like tweezers, and you can get those anywhere. So whatever kind you have, just line up your letters, stack them on top of each other, and it gives you great height. So our letters are going to be white and the shadow behind them is going to match our card. I decided to take that third level, which was called dusk, is the third darkest of our colors, and I'm just doing it lightly on the background. And this is just to really coordinate the card. You can do this as heavy as you want. If you decide it's not dark enough, you can go along the edges with a little bit of a smaller brush and add, or you can just add several layers. I made mine just a little darker along the edges because I liked how that looked, and I used this smaller brush with the same color to do that. And here's how that looked when I finished. Just a nice shadow. It's going to look perfect on the front of this card. So let's glue the letters onto our shadow with little dots of glue. Quick tip here, once you've got it where you want it to be, it's always nice to put something heavy on top just to hold those little letters down while you're getting the rest ready. So I'm using an acrylic block, and that holds my letters nice and flat. Now when we have our whole piece, we're going to put this on the front of the card. You want to use double-sided adhesive, not glue, because the glue, if it seeps out from behind it, it's going to leave a little area that doesn't let you see through your pocket as well. So I would highly recommend some type of tape to glue this, I say to glue this down, to adhere this to the card. And here's how it looks. Let's put it on the front and then let's shake it around so you can see it. I hope that you enjoyed this so much. I really had fun with this card, and I think it's a really easy way to brighten somebody's day with these shaker pieces. Okay, look at it from a different angle. Oh my goodness, it's just so beautiful and so fun. I hope that you enjoyed this class. I'm going to pop back in and talk to you real quick. Okay, what did you think about this card? So fun, and you don't have to keep it all one color. I just like that we can coordinate our sparkles with our background, with our sentiment. It just really makes me happy, and as you can tell, I'm a huge fan of blue. So this was why we went with blue today. We wanted to try out some different things, and I hope that you had fun in the class. If you like my teaching style, if you liked this class, make sure you follow me on YouTube. I put out weekly videos there, and I would love to see you in one of my live streams or just at one of my pre-recorded videos. Don't forget to download the freebie and have fun.